Oh.
What do you do?
Nothing. If you don't have an account, you can't.
All right.
Oh, interesting.
No, it's been that way for a while. What you can do, the way around it is you can like Google search for, like I can Google search Shang and Twitter and see Shang's most recent posts, but I can't go into Twitter, which is fine. I don't like Twitter or need to go into Twitter other than get this link.
Well, apparently you do need to go into Twitter because you need this link.
Well, that's what I just said.
Yeah, so why don't you do that?
Well, why don't I? Yeah. You're the thing.
Yeah.
Person.
I'm the person thing?
Yeah.
All right, sweet. I love being a person thing.
You should see
that thing is a person, darn you.
You should see the penthouse suite in the arena. It is a weird concept. I feel like it's taking away a crap load of seats.
Well, that's probably fine for the next few years.
Yeah. But I mean, with Google having bought all the land, they're gonna have to figure at some point. They're gonna have to figure something out. I mean, the arena's still fine; like it doesn't need much, but it's behind everyone else by a long shot. But it's weird. It's like It's like a wooden section that kind of comes like halfway down the top concourse on one goal side, and it's like wood like stand up bars, and I don't know. It's kind of weird. You'll see it on them. They've shown people in them sort of on the jumbotron in the preseason games if you've watched that, but they haven't really gone into the details of it.
Okay, there's the YouTube link for today.
Whoop.
I haven't been able to watch anything. I was just telling Ben how I'm trying to figure out what paid solution I'm going for this season because
they're streaming
streams.
They're streaming the preseason on their website. So you had that, but yeah, when the season starts, I don't know. It's a mess. But I'll tell you what, though, I was working with MLB like way back when they were thinking about going. This is like 20 years ago now, when they were going to go all subscription based, and I'm glad they didn't as much of a pain in the ass as it is, because the MLS went to subscription, and now we're not watching the MLS at all. And we were before. I mean, like you can still watch a couple of Earthquakes games, but like they went full on Apple subscription, which I don't know. There's just too many subscription services. Obviously, we were always going to get to a point where, ta-da! The new invention is aggregate cable. But I don't know. It's funky. I watch enough sports where like individual subscriptions would be a royal pain in the ass, but I feel you. Someone's got to come up with a solution. All right. This is number 202. Holy smokes. And we didn't talk about the Carlson trade, right? We talked about the draft last.
When did the Carlson trade happen? It was long after the draft, right?
Yeah. So, I don't think we did.
So we have not. Yeah, we haven't talked about the Carlson.
I'm going to do a quick summary of Cummings. I'm not going to do goings necessarily, and I'll mention that, and then we can talk about. We can talk about. I'm not going to go one by one because that'll take forever. Okay, let me know when you guys are ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, I'm as ready as
you'll ever be.
Season.
I'm a little more optimistic than you are. That'll probably be a subject of the podcast. Not in terms of us being good. Let me.
We'll get into defining what optimism means.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just to be perfectly clear. All right, you guys ready? Let me know when you're recording, Ben.
I've been streaming for the last minute or two, so that's the only way I can get a YouTube link is to start the stream. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to Circling the Cup, San Jose Sharks podcast, episode number 202. We are back and we are starting a brand new season of Sharks hockey. We're going to talk about whether or not we're optimistic about that and what really is optimism at the end of the day. I'm Alex. Here with me, as always, is the Honorable Ben. What's up, Ben?
So this is a philosophy podcast now, I guess.
I think so, yeah. Well, usually the season start has to be because, it's the Sharks lately. And of course, live via hologram, thanks to new and exciting technologies from Sweden, is Colin. What's up, Colin?
I don't know what to do with any of that.
Well, let's talk about it. long off season.
Wait. That's what David
Yeah.
Quinn says when he looks at the roster.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think this time he gets a little bit more of a say. But speaking of roster,
oh, that's the philosophy part.
big offseason for the Sharks, obviously. Now, we talked a lot about this last season and into the draft in our one offseason podcast, which is basically the Sharks made a general manager call late, which in turn caused them to make a coaching call late. A lot of that was after the roster was, either not necessarily fully set, but just not a lot of time to really make it their offseason. This offseason, however, is 100% Greer and hopefully in tandem Quinn. So what we are looking at now is really what I would consider the first truly meaningful offseason for the future of this franchise. And there have been a lot of shifts. So we'll talk about the trades first. And these are post-draft trades because we talked about the draft itself. Steven Lorentz is out. Incoming is Anthony Duclair. Niazev is out. In is Gawanke, who, by the way, is one of the players that we'll probably talk about who really wanted out of his situation with the promise of playing time. And that's going to be pretty critical when you see what the Sharks are doing here. And then, of course, obviously, the big daddy of all the trades, Hamliuk, is out. And Hoffman, Granlund, and Ruda is... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Also, Carlson is out. He was part of that trade as well. So Carlson is officially a Pittsburgh Penguin. The Sharks, in return, they got a conditional first-round draft. They got Mikael Granlund, and they got Mike Hoffman. Now, all three of those guys... Mike Hoffman back on the Sharks for his second stint. But, all three of these guys and Duclair as well are all veterans. And you're going to see a theme kind of running through between, this far end of veteran and this young, really rookie core. Not a lot of that mid-ground there. Real quick. The Carlson trade.
Wait.
Well, hold on.
You said rookie core. You said rookie core. Are they a rookie core?
No, I didn't say. I didn't. No. I didn't say rookie core at all. So let's talk about this trade for a second here, right? The Duclair one for Lorentz. Lorentz was a player who wasn't really going to be a part of the future. Wasn't really doing a lot. Anthony Duclair is a reclamation project to an extent. He can be very fast. He can score, although he was injured for quite a while there. So the Sharks are putting a little bit of a low risk bet on him for a season. Gawanke is whose name I'm sure I'm mispronouncing, is another one of those reclamation projects, but younger talent in there. Again, he really wants to be getting NHL playing time, which is part of the reason why he wanted out of Winnipeg. And then obviously Carlson. So we talked a lot about Carlson at the last trade deadline when arguably the iron was the hottest. Given when the Sharks traded him, how do you guys feel about the return? And one thing I want to point out to fans, obviously, is there's sort of two things that you're looking at with this trade. One is obviously whatever you're getting back, but really the bigger part is getting Carlson's contract off the books. Because again, when Greer came in, he was very much handcuffed by these really big contracts. He still is. He still has Hurdle, although Hurdle can still play. He still has Couture, who's injured at the moment, but last season could still play. And then Vlasic, who I'm not going to say is worth his contract, but at least had a bit of a return to form last season. How do you guys feel about the Carlson trade and return?
I could do without the protected 10 on the first.
I mean, yeah, but you'll take the first either way.
I mean, yeah, I would expect a first either way. Is how I'd say it.
I think it's
otherwise.
I think the tough thing
could be worse.
Yeah, I think the tough theme for teams this year was, obviously the cap didn't go up very much. And, the situation that the Sharks were in was, well, you can hold them and then maybe get an even better return next year just because it'll be easier to make a trade. Obviously, they needed a 3-team trade here with Montreal to make this happen. But obviously, you also have Erik Karlsson, who, other than last season, as long as he's been on the Sharks, has been kind of made of glass. So, hard to trade a contract like that. And I think that just goes to the idea that, let's not be signing those kinds of contracts moving forward because they're incredibly difficult. Now, maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room in that statement if you're talking about like a super young guy, like really young, who's going to be like your cornerstone, like McDavid. Like, sure, obviously. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Colin. I thought it was just worth pointing out the cap didn't go up, which made this more complicated than you would have hoped.
Well, yeah, but Carlson's made of glass, and Malkin is not the most durable player either, and the Penguins are a couple of injuries from maybe not having the run they want to have.
But they also got Doug Wilson. Don't forget.
Is he going to play?
Now, well, no, but he's advising, so
because they might need him if Carlson breaks.
Yeah.
But I mean, as we said before, getting Carlson off the books is the win of the trade. Having him, like having some retained salary, having that little amount of retained salary is a pretty big win too. I thought we were going to have to retain more, and so that's really nice.
Also, keep in mind that Hoffman is a free agent after the season. Granlund is a free agent after the season. Ruda's got an extra season in there. It's not crazy expensive. I think it's about like 2.75. Yeah, it's about 2.75 million.
Yeah, he's a Shemek plus.
Yeah. So basically what you're getting in here is I'm going to air quote this, Ben, veteran stability for a season, and then you're kind of out of that contract jail.
I mean, it's not really a contract jail.
Yeah.
I mean,
no. Well, I mean, with Carlson's contract, even when Carlson's playing well, the Sharks, because they have these larger contracts between Hertl, Couture, and Vlasic, were very much, and stuff still coming off the books, very much in a situation where you're trying to reset this team a little bit. It gets hard to do that when so much money is locked up in the 4 players. So now you've got another one of those off the books after this season, which is great. And I say after the season again because you do still have to pay Granlund, Hoffman, and Ruutu. They're not free, obviously.
So my take at the time, and I don't think it's changed, is that bearing in mind that this is grading on a curve, because I expected Greer to get jobbed on a Carlson trade. This was a freaking miracle of a trade, honestly. So to only retain 1.5 million, you got rid of Hamlock, who was never going to, be anything in this org. You get back players that are going to be off your books in a year. And, if they play better than they did last year, maybe they coast on their reputation and you get something for them at the trade deadline, right? Like, I don't think you necessarily have to wait for them to, wait for the end of the year for these guys to be off the books. It
Correct.
Pretty clear to me that whatever they're going to say publicly, this is going to be an actual tank year, not a fake tank year like last year. Because this team is real bad and it's constructed really poorly, and I'm fine with that. I mean, they got $10 million of cap space 2 years early.
Right.
They get a protected first rounder, and probably the Pens are not drafting in the top 10 anyway when that pick comes up. So
one can hope. Go Pens.
I mean, you're right, Colin, that this is a huge risk year for Pittsburgh, but who cares, right? They helped us clean this up, and also tip of the hat to fucking Montreal for helping get this thing done too, because I don't think this deal gets done without them taking Petrie.
No,
and the stuff that moved, or at least you don't get to retain as much salary as it's clear, or you end up retaining more salary than Greer wanted to. I mean, I think we all were expecting to retain half of Carlson's salary in a trade.
Yeah.
And given that this team is not going to be good anytime soon, getting that salary clear so you can start to plan long term is just, this is one of the smartest things Greer has done.
Yeah. And again, the cap's going to go up next year, right?
And anybody who thinks this return sucked, because you only get back these 3 players and protected first and all that is an idiot. This wasn't meant to be a trade. This wasn't meant to be a trade where you get guys ready to play now who are future stars. It was never going to be.
Yeah.
The Sharks had minimal leverage in moving Carlson.
Right. Yeah.
So
it,
to get
it would be a misunderstanding to view it really any other way in terms of how the actual business works. And that's one of the most important things, again, when you're looking at these trades. Like, it is really easy, especially with the Sharks in the position that they're in right now, contract wise and salary wise. It's really easy to look at it and go, well, I didn't get the next Meyer or whatever. But part of getting to that point again for the Sharks has been having to open up this cap space to be able to start making moves. And a lot of the moves that they're making now, let's be real. The thing that excites me a little bit about this season compared to last season is last season was just purgatory. They weren't really moving forward. They weren't necessarily moving backward. They were just there, right? And a large part of it was because other than playing the youth, which they chose not to do, they couldn't really do a lot because of their salary situation. The Sharks are in a process right now of trying to be able to at least move forward. And a huge part of that is going to be bringing in some of these temp players while the younger crop develops and they can identify who that core is, and just sort of making sure you have enough players in the rosters and stabilizing it to get to that point where, hey, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, hopefully we have a core of youth that we can then really have the salary space to build up and around, right?
Yeah, the key issue here is now, what does Greer do with his cap space? That's what matters now.
And
like
that's what he didn't do great last offseason, right?
No, not at all. So he made. So look, we've had a very good draft. We talked about that in our last podcast. This Carlson trade is a minor miracle. And now he's got to actually make the right call in terms of, what do you do with that money? Who do you extend? Who do you trade? What are you going for this year? You missed out on the generational player by not tanking correctly last year, and you're probably not going to get something like that this year. But nonetheless, another Will Smith would not be the worst thing in the world.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the signings here, because they did pick up a lot of players, and obviously we can jump between players as we go. I don't want to do this one by one. So after I bring this up, talk about who you'd like to. So in terms of bringing back, so Bystedt, Makiniemi, and Peterson are back. We picked up a new goalie in Mackenzie Blackwood. This is another reclamation project. He was a goalie that looked like he was going to be pretty good for a while, and then was injured. We brought in Giovanni Smith from Florida, who's a bit more of an enforcer. Obviously, we brought back as an RFA Zetterland. Carpenter is back. Ryan Carpenter, if you remember him. We brought in Kyle Burrows. We brought in Scott Sabarin. We brought in Nathan Todd. Liam Gwanke got signed. He was sort of traded and as an RFA and then needed to be signed. Obviously, we got Philip Zadina and then Kasper Hautunen. So, this roster has the potential to look fairly different because, again, you're talking about, Granlund, Hoffman, Duclair, all of whom are absolutely going to be playing. Zadina, assuming he can stay healthy, to get a little bit injured, very likely. Giovanni Smith, I don't think you brought him up not to have him on the roster. I think they feel like they just need that bigger body type, which is exactly why you would bring a guy like him in, whether or not that's the right move or not. And then, when you look at the defense here, you've got coming in, you got Ruda, you got Burrows. They just plucked Ty Emberson off of waivers. You have Jacob McDonald still here. So I think what's going to be really interesting about the Sharks this year is that from day one, Greer has been saying he wanted the team to be more competitive. Now, at first, it wasn't totally clear exactly what he meant there. It seemed like he just wanted them to be a little bit more physical, take away more space. But as the year kind of went on, he made it very clear that he wanted players to be fighting for their spots. Now, in theory, that is great. But in practice, the Sharks didn't really do a lot of that, right? There were a lot of players on the roster last season who, quite frankly, weren't really cutting it. And yet we still saw the same thing we had seen in years prior, where maybe a kid would come up, but then be on an ultra short leash, regardless of whether or not there was a player above them that was playing better or that should have taken priority in terms of development. Now what the Sharks have done within the last year and a half, they've definitely gotten younger on the prospect front, but they have a lot of prospects. A lot of these guys are not, they're going to have a waiver situation. They're going to have a contract situation they're going to have to work through. And some of these guys they brought in, like Thrun, who I thought was great in his limited starts last season and has been great in this preseason, and guys like Gawanke were brought in specifically because they wanted to leave the team that they were playing for previously because they weren't getting opportunities. So Sharks are going to have a lot to juggle. And I think the question is, and I have this question for you, and I already know the answer, guys, but I'm going to ask it anyways for our fans. Given the prospect pool that we have now, which is definitely seemingly, I'm going to say seemingly because no prospect is ever a guarantee, improved from where we were at least last season, do you guys believe that the Sharks are actually, with how few spaces they technically have up, when you look at the roster and how they would normally handle this, right? I think you have like two or three forward spaces at most, one defensive space maybe, outside of injuries and stuff. Do you guys really believe the Sharks are going to run this as an even competition? Right.
So I saw this one posted idea how it's not an actual competition. Like certain rookies have to be shooting for like a top 6 spot, but they wouldn't be slotted into a bottom 6 because
Right.
that's not the role they're going for.
Right.
And I'm like, no. You get them into the NHL games. You let them work through the roles, work through the positions that fit their skill set, and give them the honest shot and let them actually make or break, because it's not like this team is pushing for success. So
I saw that too, and I found that one interesting because that's not something I had heard a lot prior, not just in the Sharks in general. And for those of you who missed it, there is a theory for development going around that states, hey, if you're grooming guys for the top 2 lines, throwing them on a 4th line is not the way to go. Like, you're looking at it more from a role perspective and making sure that they can grow and succeed in those roles by putting them in the actual role as part of development. I don't know that I get where that idea comes from. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it. You definitely need to make sure you put guys in positions to succeed, right? You want that, but I mean, if you're going to put Eklund on, a wing with, 2 grinders, then yeah, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense for his development. But hopefully you don't have a line like that either.
Well, you shouldn't. Exactly.
Right.
Like, it's an archaic conception of how a modern hockey team should run, which is that you have, your scoring lines and a checking line and a fighting line, and that's fucking 1990s shit. So
yeah, it's not going to win you a cup. You got to have 4 really competent lines. It's not that you don't want to be physical. Like, being physical is a huge part of it, especially when you get to the playoffs. But you need to make sure that physicality has the skill to be at the correct level, and speed, hopefully, as well.
That's the issue, is that what you should be looking for is the physicality to be a force multiplier, not just existing for its own sake, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
The day of the I'm a physical player and I do nothing else should have been over, a decade ago. But there are unfortunately certain teams in this league that still think in Stone Age terms. And
I think that's part of it, Ben. But I also think when you start to think about how fast the NHL is, what I can sort of see occurring, and I really hope it doesn't because it was boring, is the way you stop speed if you don't have speed. I mean, ideally you get speed as well, but then it becomes a foot race, right? The way you stop speed is you take away space. And so I think a lot of teams are still relying on that old school hockey thought because they're looking at it as if it's coming full circle, right? The trap clogged fast teams when New Jersey used to play it. That was in fact a strategy, and these are constant evolutions and revolutions, essentially. Right?
But you don't want that league.
Right? I agree.
So there are rules in place. They just need to be called to prevent that league from coming back. I mean, we had a fucking strike about it almost 20 years ago. So you don't want that league, and you shouldn't be encouraging teams to run that style and dilute the talent level. And this is why this is the worst league, right? The best sport, worst league is because these dumb motherfuckers let it go in cycles as opposed to breaking the cycle and keeping the cycle broken. But
I mean, this is the
here we
same.
are nonetheless.
This is the same league that brought back Babcock for what, like 3 weeks.
Oh
my God.
And then immediately realized maybe if
Oh,
you were going to do that, more time
shithead?
needed to pass.
Really?
Yeah.
He didn't learn anything
my
from the last
God.
time?
Yeah. Well, let's hop back to the Sharks for a second. Of these pickups that we have coming in, and of these prospects that we have that we've been starting to see in the rookie camp and in camp in general, including some of the ones that came in from the Meyer trade that we didn't really get a good look at.
Yeah.
Who are you optimistic or excited about at the moment for this season? Or we can go beyond.
Duclair. I'm excited to see Duclair in a Sharks uniform. I'm just sad that it's now and
yeah,
not
instead
when,
of 5
when
years
we
ago
good.
when we were all saying,
Yeah.
what the fuck, man? So, somebody needs to give Duclair a chance, and it should be the Sharks. But
Yeah.
I'm
happy for that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I like Duclair too. I went to the first Sharks Vegas preseason game, and obviously an early preseason game, right? You can't really read a whole lot into that, and I wasn't as impressed as I was hoping to walk away from. Although again, I needed to have lower expectation. I'm personally very excited. I'm about guys like Zadina, who I think is someone who can, of the reclamation projects, probably has the highest chance of really bouncing back. I'm also excited, obviously, to see more of Eklund, hopefully Gushin. Bordeleau, I got to say, I'm not seeing enough of him quite yet to make this roster, which really disappoints me because I feel like he was on such a good path when we were just throwing him in there initially.
This is the problem with fucking preseason games and using them to judge a player.
Right.
Is Bordeleau has had success playing on NHL ice.
I agree.
So to take 5 games against backups and playing alongside dipshits and judging a player's readiness for the NHL on that is one of the dumbest things that continues to exist in
the
sports.
NHL. Yeah, they're going to do
it in the NHL. So yeah, Bordeleau's going to get fucked here, and he's going to get fucked through no fault of his own. And we're going to get fucked because he should be playing at the NHL level, and we should be watching him distribute passes to actual decent wingers now that we've piled up. It would help a player like Zadina to have somebody who could pass distributing to him, right?
Yeah.
So I just obviously I feel very strongly that the fact that he's not even in the mix for the NHL at the moment is an incredibly stupid oversight.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I were to get, I was going to say if I were to get a young player's jersey today, other than Eklund, the end of last season, I loved him. I like Thrun a lot, and I'll tell you what, just in person, seeing him again, yes, Ben, that style of game, whatever, he gets it. Like, to me, that is an NHL player, and he's another player that I'm watching closely because he seems to be doing almost everything right now, but because there's limited spaces,
it doesn't matter.
He may get screwed there.
It doesn't matter.
The
like
pace.
Yeah, but see, he's a player. Thrun is a real Thrun Gwanke specifically are 2 guys. Thrun only signed here with the promise of play. That's why he wanted out of that Ducks.
Well, he made a terrible mistake.
I know, which
this
kills
team
me.
is run by morons. So
when he's
look,
on the
we're
ice,
only going to see one young guy in this opening day roster. I'll tell you right now, it's going to be Eklund. That's it.
Yeah,
they're not going to give anybody else a chance. They're going to continue to run absolutely worthless players like Luukkonen. I feel bad saying this because again he's coming back from illness, but Oscar Lindblom is a nothing. Givani Smith is a nothing. Like, fuck that guy. He's just taking up a spot. So that's 3 spaces that could be going to Bordeleau, Gushin, and guys you need to develop. Now, again, this team is gonna be garbage this year. It's gonna be real bad. Get ready for 32nd in the league. Partly because, what are they doing with the defense? You're stuck with Vlasic, Ferraro, Ruda, Shemek, Benning, and Knižov taking up the vast majority of your cap.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you think about the defensive roster, and you've got these guys like Gawanke and Thrun who should be playing, but they're not going to because this is what you have for whatever reason assembled and not gotten rid of.
This is why the Emerson pickup on waivers was
also
puzzling to me. Not because I have a problem with him, but I'm already looking at a logjam in defense.
They
so
are
adding another one,
the best AHL decor you have ever fucking seen.
I honestly, I think Emerson had more to do with the fact he's a righty, because now they are just they're all left. Like, for
sure.
Like for considering how many, I don't know exactly what the percentage of people who are left-handed or right-handed. There's more right-handed people, but the Sharks seem to have collected all the lefties.
I think there are 2 natural right-handers in that list that I gave.
Yeah.
Which, that's okay, but you really would like your guys playing on their strong side. So
right. Yeah.
See, no. The place you build hope is you just think, oh, he's got all these possibilities, and teams are going through their training camps, and it's not like other NHL teams are smart, so they're gonna say, oh, these bets that we got aren't very good, and along comes Mike Greer, and he goes, hey, here you go, I've got some options you haven't tried in a couple months. Why don't you try these out?
That's so very optimistic of you, Colin. I love you for that.
And we get all the 3rd and 4th round picks you could imagine.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I felt bad.
Come on.
I saw someone on the Reddits the other day asking, it was from Finland, and he was a fan of Valtteri Puli, and he was like, how's he looking so far? And I'm like, oh, you poor soul.
Yeah.
Like he's not very high in the pecking order, and it's not his fault.
I mean,
there's not spaces.
The problem also is that every single one of these young guys that we really want to see is also a lefty.
Yeah.
So I mean,
at least they're young now, though. At least they're young.
Mukmadulin, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I apologize to him for that, because he's actually, my sense has been is that not only has he looked good in play, but also he seems to be impressing the coaches to some extent.
Yeah, although they're keeping him in the AHL, and they're starting him in the AHL.
No, I know, because they're fucking idiots. But yeah, anyway,
I'm just curious how they're going to manage the. Well, I mean, I think I know, but again, if you want to, I do believe that they are trying to run this competitive. Again, I think they're limiting exactly how that plays out. But even their waiver situation isn't particularly great. And so that's another thing that you're going to have to watch as a fan. It's not one of those, hey, dude is good, can come up, other dude go down, unless you're going to lose him. And there may be players like that. Like, for example, is anyone going to claim Lindblom off of waivers? Probably not, unless all of a sudden this ends up being his bounce back season, which is always technically possible.
It's possible,
but yeah, but I don't necessarily know that bothers them, because what the pickups to me kind of make clear. So 2 things. One, I appreciate the fact that they're trying to get younger. That's great, but I will say, the way that they're going about it still makes me feel like they're not quite sure what it is exactly they're looking for, trying to build, because it seems to be just hoarding a smattering of players and continue. Again, Ty Emerson's a really good example. Yeah, I get it. Right-handed, got it. AHL, likely, got it. But they're just, I feel like now they're just collecting every piece that they can kind of collect. And so what I'm hoping for this season on my end is I'm hoping that we're at least a foot out of that purgatory of not really going either direction. I think because we have switched to having more youth overall, I think that puts us in the position to do that. They need to manage it. They need to manage it in a way where that actually works. Otherwise, maybe watching more Barracuda games this season than I am watching Sharks games, just being real. But I will say, again, at least for me, I do feel like even if we've only moved the football a yard forward, at least I feel like the football's going somewhere. I know.
I mean,
hey, I'm amazed you've identified it as a football.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so here's the thing. Is it Ben? I'll say yes, and I'll tell you why.
It kind of depends, doesn't it?
I'm more, yeah, but I'll tell you why I think it is. I think it is because of the youth that they've brought in. I am more optimistic about some of these players than I was in the year prior in terms of actually getting stuff. So again, when you look at like Mukmadulin or Thrun is a really good example.
Or Duclair.
Yeah, or Duclair. Well, I mean, he's not young, but yeah.
No, it's not. It's true. He's not as young.
He's
I
not
just
young anymore.
Well, I mean, he's not super. But that's the thing is that like I feel like there are. I wasn't counting Duclair because Duclair is, maybe he gets re-signed, maybe he gets flipped. It really depends on how he comes back. But again, when you just look at the youth prospects, there are more youth prospects right now by only a handful that I look at and I go, yeah, okay. I think you're going to be like, I'm fairly confident you are going to be an NHL player and fairly confident you're going to be part of the new core whenever it actually comes. Whereas last year, we had a bunch of guys that I was on and off excited about, but wasn't really sure, other than Eklund specifically, maybe Bordelot, who the team seems to be doing whatever. I wasn't like 100% like, yeah, okay, this person's absolutely going to wind up being on that NHL roster in 2 or 3 years. So in that sense, I feel a little bit more engaged and a little bit more interested in some of this. But again, it's how they handle it.
I mean, I think the way I look at it is, Greer still made some baffling additions to this team this year. But he's also made far better additions than he did the year before, in the sense of, Duclair he's not young, but he is miles better than a Kunin or a Lawrence. At least theoretically, he's shown it that he can be. Depends on how he comes back from injury. That's a better bet, right, than a Kunin or a Lawrence, in my opinion. Particularly if the goal is these guys are going to be collecting us assets at the trade deadline, right? We're running them for the first 3 months, to showcase them for somebody's playoff run,
and a little bit of veteran leadership. Assuming you can get kids up.
What veteran? There isn't anybody for them to lead. So I don't think any of this is about veteran leadership, unless they still think Kunin is going to turn into something, which is, spoiler alert, not going to happen.
Right.
Otherwise, like, your team has Zetterlund and Philip Zadina as the young guys who have been around, right? Like, there's no, besides Eklund, there isn't anybody on this roster who needs quote unquote veteran leadership, right? So I don't think that was their goal. In other words, I don't think that was what they were trying to do. I think they were trying to get pieces that fit their plan, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
And by their plan, I would suggest that what this roster looks like is one that is meant to be mediocre at best, and a collection of parts that you're going to look not to keep long term.
Right.
But as they're holding spots for the guys that are not being given a chance this year, who are back in junior or back to college or off to college in the first place, like Will Smith, etc. Right? Like this is a placeholder year, and it is at least being clearly designed to be a placeholder year, as opposed to last year where you were like, what is this collection of misfit toys?
But it feels like but again, when you look at the 2024 to 2025 situation, so next season, in the off season availability, I agree. Yes, it's still a bit of a hold, it's placeholder, but it feels like it's a very clear one more year of placeholder.
Yeah, I agree.
Then we're taking a big step forward. Or
sorry, Colin. One last thing, and then I'll go to you and I'll shut my fucking mouth. The thing that I would express here is that it also seems like, I mean, this roster is overloaded with toys, mostly misfit, and most of them are going to have to spend the year at the AHL level, whether we like it or not, right? So that is a waste in some cases, and otherwise, maybe an argument for people to get their AHL streaming pass, because I do think that the quality of players at that level is going to be quite high. Just maybe not by design, but by accident.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I will shut up.
It's just I just wanted to jump in that this is the sort of roster that my mind wanders on random Sharks things. I go, oh right, Scott Gomez was a Shark once, and it's like, this is gonna be one of those rosters where you're like, oh right, Hoffman was a Shark twice.
Oh yeah, for sure. I told my kids that exact same thing. They were like, oh, should we get to know all these players? And I'm like, you're gonna forget that they were on the Sharks and look back. I will say one area that really concerns me, not for the season, just in general, is I'm really getting the sense that the Sharks have no idea what to do with their goalie pipeline at all. And like, it feels like they're starting to sort offense a bit. They're starting to sort defense a bit. But I feel like they're still just throwing shit at a wall. Like, bringing in Blackwood again, that's a reclamation project. It's obviously part of, Ben, as you mentioned, that sort of placeholder situation, right? Because you still have Kakinen, who you're hoping has a better season than last season.
Yeah.
It's pretty clear to me that I don't personally think, and I'm assuming the Sharks don't think Capo is really long-term future. Blackwood is like a maybe, fingers crossed. But then when you look down further, they brought in Romanov, and you've got Krona, and you've got Makiniemi. But even the way that they really handled goaltending prospects, even under the last year of Wilson specifically, it doesn't feel to me like they really have confidence or know what they're going to do. And I almost feel like the second Kakinen's off the roster, they are likely going to try to find, you're talking about next season when more people come up. Like, I don't think you're going to have another holdover. And I don't really feel like, and it's early, obviously, to be saying this, I don't get the sense like you're going to suddenly see Makiniemi or someone up the next season at all.
Well, they really talked a lot about how much they like Krona yesterday.
Yeah, right. But they also say they really like Mukhamadullin. And, they obviously want to keep him down in the AHL because they don't want to rush guys up. They've been saying the same things for goalie prospects on and off for a while. So that I'm just saying, to me, that's the one area where I feel like there's clear. I can see what the team thinks they're starting to get with some of the forwards and some of the defense. I'm still not really clear on what exactly the Sharks are doing on the goaltending stuff. The Sharks haven't been great with goaltending development again since Strello passed away, really. So that's an area where, as some of these other sides pick up again, in our little private chat, we have a private chat, guys. Colin brought up, Colin asked, when do we think the new core clock starts? Does it start with Will Smith and the org's just trying shit until Smith shows up? And, the way I look at it is, obviously you have to time this stuff, right? So like you want the younger guys that are going to be surrounding Smith and maybe Eklund, to be kind of peaking around or getting close to peaking around the same time. Otherwise, you're not really doing yourself a favor. If everyone is off in their development, that's not great. So they're going to have to make sure that they have a goaltending situation there. I can see what the defense one is. Again, if you can hold on to Thrun, if you don't piss him off this season by not playing him, and Mukhamadullin continues to progress, and eventually Vlasic. Well, we got Vlasic for a while. He's not going anywhere. But, you can move Ferraro. You have options there that can come up. Like, you can right now see, okay, if Smith comes up and let's say, I don't think a year's realistic. I think it's probably going to be more like, 2 years or so before they really are taking that seriously. But you've got Eklund there. You've got potentially Gushin if he continues to play the way he's playing. I think Weisblatt needs a lot more time to just develop on the IQ side. I think he's got a lot of energy and a lot of gusto, but he just, but obviously,
so many spins,
passes and stuff. You have Bordelot, and again on the defense side, right? You've got Thrun, you've got Pulley, you've got Mukhamadullin, you've got Okotiuk. I'm sure I'm killing that name, but that's always a hard one. But like, you can sort of see that, like, hey, you could probably thrust these guys forward, hopefully in about at least or at most 2 years, and be ready to have some of those guys there along with them. But it's all timing, right? And that's again where the goaltending situation. But goalie, you can get goalies are easy to pull in, to be perfectly honest. It's hard to get it's hard to get like a superstar, like amazing goaltender, but you can get serviceable goaltenders every offseason. They're there.
We have since that pipeline dried up, we have had to move for a serviceable or better goalie to play as the starter, entire time I've been a Sharks fan, basically. So,
come on. Stanley Cup champion Aiden Hill.
Look, well, there's that, yes, and thank you for that heartbreaking fucking
Hey, Mr. 20 years ago.
But I was going to say, we did go to the Stanley Cup finals with what's his fuck? who is
Martin Jones.
Exactly.
Yeah, Martin Jones, who is, outside of that year has been pretty much garbage. So
They had a pretty good playoff this year, though.
did he?
Yeah,
I didn't really pay attention.
yeah. But I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, goalies are
So did
crazy.
Aiden Hill.
Yeah, right. Goalies are crazy, right? Well, the Aiden Hill situation, it was really funny when I saw fans that were really like bitter about that. I was like, given this, you got to look at the situation at the time. Like, he was obviously the odd man out in that situation. You had to make a decision and move on. That's just, it's sometimes it's timing and luck sometimes. That
Who would have called that? Nobody calls that.
Vegas fans will be like, "Oh, we knew the entire time," and I'm like, "Shut up! You didn't even know the entire season. Get out of here."
Jesus.
Get out of here with that junk. Okay, guys. What are you looking for? What are you guys watching for the season? If a fan's coming in right now and going, "Hey, I haven't followed the Sharks in a while. I recognize that they're probably not going to be good. So that is my expectation. What should I be paying attention to, do you think?"
I don't like this question.
I do. I'll answer it.
Go.
I mean, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, the defense is going to just be garbage, right? So and the goaltending doesn't look like it's going to be good either. So with those two things said, I expect that obviously the Sharks are going to give up a lot of goals. What I'm hoping for and what I'm looking for is that the forward core is high scoring and entertaining.
Right.
And it could be, right? I mean, you've got Hurdle and Couture when he's healthy, still very good. Granlund could, score a lot of goals and not do much else. LeBanc could do well on the power play and not much else. Mike Hoffman, who knows what you're getting with that guy at this point, but he could put in some goals. We're hoping. So, of the guys who have come in that, I'm looking for a little bit more, I'm hoping Duclair is a good bet and maybe somebody that we keep around for a few more years just to, hold down a spot, because we don't have a lot of scoring wingers that are kind of like ready to come up anyway. So I don't think if we expect that Hoffman and Granlund are going to get moved, if you're going to keep one of those three guys, you keep Duclair, right?
Yeah.
You hope that works. Cunnin, go away. Barabanov, I've loved what he's given us, but there's no way he sticks around after this year. So
he says he wants to. He says he wants to.
Yeah. This guys say a lot of things. Plus, he is about to turn 30, so you're looking towards a guy starting to decline. But whatever. If you could get something for him, I'd move him. Lindblom probably not going to show more than he did last year. Sad. Nico Sturm, who cares? So then we get to the guys I want to see more from: Zetterlund, Zadina, Eklund. Right. Those three guys I'm paying a lot of attention to. Do the Sharks figure out how to get more from Zadina? Right. Get what brought him to a high draft pick in the first place. Zetterlund, what is he going to be? Is he anything more than a filler wing for the moment? I suspect, unfortunately, that's all he is, but you never know. Yeah. He's only 24. And then Eklund. I'd love to be able to watch Bordelot all season. I'd love to watch Gushin at the NHL level all season, but I don't think those two are going to get a chance. If they do, then I'm going to be super excited to watch that fourth line of Eklund, Bordelot, and Gushin score a lot of goals and give up a lot of goals.
Yeah, I will say you keep throwing Nico Sturm into the bus. I got to say he was one of my pleasant surprises last season.
He was fine.
Just in terms of look, again, obviously at this level, you want everyone to really be able to contribute. But there is something to those guys that display leadership, and I felt like Nico Sturm really surprised me in that regard. He seemed like one of the guys who was always very vocal and really trying to push the team. You can just tell he's a locker room guy, which only has so much weight, but. Hey, I'm right where you are, Ben. I think those are the exact same players that I'm looking at for the exact same reasons. I will throw in that I am really watching the Thruns situation closely, because that to me, again, like every time he's on the ice at the end of last season in his limited playing time, every time he was on the ice, things seemed to pick up. He's fairly electric, and again, in watching that Vegas game, in person, you could just see that he was a cut above the other defensemen to a large extent. And so he's one I'm tracking. There are other defensemen, obviously, like, I want to see what Gwanke is. I want to see more of Mukamadulin, although I suspect that other than injuries, they really want him to stay in the AHL another year. But other than those two, I'm looking for the same things. And the other thing I'll point out too is it should be a little bit more interesting to see where scoring comes from this time around, because when you look at last season, obviously the beast that was Erik Karlsson in the season that he had, things were not really super spread out. And on this team, it's going to have to be. So you're probably going to see, I would expect to see less higher goal totals for individual players, but more goals across, not more goals in terms of numbers, just spread out, right? And I think the Sharks really, that'll be entertaining, but the Sharks really need that at this point. If you're in a situation where, don't get me wrong, I think Hurl needs to have and he knows this, needs to have a much better season than he had last season. But if all your goals are just coming from those two guys, you're not necessarily doing yourself any favors either, right? So I am excited about guys like Gushin, as you brought up, because I think that's a guy that can really bring that. And I think if you can mix him with the right players, and also, you look at Eklund, just in watching Eklund now, Eklund was essentially a playmaker. And the Sharks really want him to be both a playmaker and a scorer. That may not end up being super realistic for him, but the Sharks still need that playmaking, that hot passing, that awareness type of player. That's what they had in a Thornton. Look, Thornton, in theory, should have been able to score like 1,000 goals a season with the way he could teleport the puck from across the rink through 50 people onto someone's tape. Clearly he can aim, but at the end of the day, the Sharks leveraged him most heavily, and he chose to be a quarterback. And I think that's okay for Eklund.
But here's the thing. So I want to get excited about Thrun and Gwanke and guys like that too. But right now they've got a top six, or not top six, but a D pairings of Vlasic, Ferraro, Ruda, Shemek, Benning, and Knyzhov. Right. So they're not going to sit any of those guys outside of injury because, again, they don't know what they're doing. So we have to wait, if we want to see Thrun. And again, that's a disservice to us, to Thrun, to the fan base. But that's just the reality is that they have retained, brought in, and re-signed this collection of garbage. Defense. And
what's the over under? Look, I don't want to put this voodoo on anyone. What are the odds that Shemek is healthy all season?
I mean, he's not even really healthy now, right?
I know, right?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, yeah.
But you still have Burrows, right? You
have Burrows, Emberton. They just picked up McDonald. Mukhamadullin will be competing for time with Thrun because they're both lefties. They seem to probably still be in love with Cicek, so we should expect to see that dip shit up once or twice.
God.
So that's the problem. So they have, to my mind, a really, really exciting collection of guys that will be playing at the AHL level. If you look at, Pooley, Thrun, Mukhamadullin, LaRoque is fine. Okudiak, who knows what he's going to be. Gwanke, and even Guriev. Those guys could all be super fun. Unfortunately, all but one of them is a lefty.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I mean, again, this sort of speaks to our ongoing critique of Greer so far. I think in some respects he's doing better with the players he's bringing in, but on the other side, he's still having the same issue of either making it overly complicated or he's filling the spots that he has just opened up. And that's something that, again, I'm watching that this next offseason just as close as I watch this one, because they have a lot of guys coming off the books. That is an opportunity being the key word, to really start making a big shift. But they can also blow that by bringing in more and trying to make 2024, 2025 exactly the same as this year, in which case, to me, that would be to completely switch sports things, Colin, as you know, I know you love, keeping the football on the same yard as opposed to moving it forward.
So, Scott Stevens was on the Sharks in 2012, 2013. And, the
So,
thing about that
hold
team
on.
that I remember was a lot of shots from all over the place. Not a whole lot of goals, and specifically
Are
not
we
a
now a
whole lot
San Jose
of
Sharks history podcast?
Oh, Messier. Don't
I
forget
I
Messier,
I
right?
think I think we are stuck in a loop, and I'm feeling like this is just a Scott Gomez season all over again.
Ugh. Well,
Hopefully
Scott
without the
Gomez, I'm pretty
playoffs.
sure, came in during one of our good seasons to be a fourth line center.
Oh, this
That's my
team,
memory.
the team back then was way better than what we have now. But the season after that we got Hurdle. So
I
maybe
think
next season, good times.
I've got bad news for you, Ben. I think this team is going to be a little better than you're thinking it's going to be, and I think that will potentially affect draft pick. I don't think they're going to be good. Let me be clear. I don't think they're going to be good. I'm hoping they're more fun to watch.
I'm confident that this team is bottom 3 again.
Yeah.
I'll say bottom 3. I just won't say 32nd.
No,
I don't think they're going to finish dead. I don't think they're going to finish dead last. I would love to think that, which is a weird thing to say, but they could really use that top draft pick.
Yeah. I mean, it's a randomness league, right? It's just as hard to finish dead last as it is to finish first. So
yeah, and that's the other thing you got to remember too is the NHL still has really good parity. So while this is clearly not one of the better Sharks teams, some of these games still wind up being coin flips. Now, I think the odds are still good that the flip doesn't go in their favor, but the delta between excellent and bad in this league, it's not as big a gap as, like, let's say in soccer or the NFL or stuff like that. So I don't know. I think I'm looking forward to the season more than last season because I feel like there are more things that I'm interested in seeing. Last season to me was just what are we really doing here? Like not as fun. I can start to see a little bit of a path here, and that's what I'm looking for. Colin, we didn't get to yours. Who are you looking? What are you looking? What are you watching for?
Forward to?
Well, yeah. What are you watching this season?
Colin immediately pulls up a historical fact about the
Sharks. I'm watching the 1997 Sharks playoff. No,
was that Zuzan? Right? Zuzan was the.
I don't remember.
No, Zuzan was later. I think.
So no. For the Sharks this season, much like that old timey San Jose Sharks team, I'm looking. I'm like Ben. I'm looking for shots. I'm looking for how the team's generating them.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I've liked from what I have been able to see of the play of the preseason is cycling and shooting, and that's what I'm looking forward to. In terms of greater hockey, I'm looking forward to the Atlantic Division beating the crap out of each other.
I'm looking for 7-5 losses every night. That's what I really want.
Can I throw in one more thing that I'm watching? I'm watching Quinn quite a bit here too, and I'll tell you why. Again, with the timing of when he was brought in, I don't think it was a situation where he could necessarily have a big impact in terms of the players and personnel. Right? He had what he had. Now, did he make the most of it? I don't think so. He kind of did that thing that he seems to do whenever he comes up to the NHL, which again, people like to point to him and the Rangers and go, he doesn't like youth, doesn't develop. The dude's spent most of his career dealing with youth players. He just seems to change it when he comes up because he feels like he's got to switch things up for the higher level. But this offseason in particular, I would at least hope that he and Greer had more consultations and were on the same page about what was sort of coming in and what to look at and what to focus on than, again, in the rush of last season's off season. So I am interested to see whether or not he starts putting a little bit more together, or maybe not. But I think he had pieces that were thrown at him, and it was like, here, make this work for now, and then we'll both get to the next off season and start to pull in stuff or talk together. So I could be wrong on that. I'm not obviously in that room, but I am interested to see how he coaches. I don't expect him to pull up youth any more than he did before. Let me make that clear. But I am interested to see whether or not he starts putting more of his own spin on systems and stuff like that than I think he was able to last year. The Sharks obviously need a coach to be competent. So that's another important piece. And I think, when you bring a coach in or a GM, you're traditionally looking, especially when you're in a rebuild, you're looking to having that coach for about 3 years on the short end, maybe a 3 to 5 year plan in there, whether or not they stay the entire time.
Oh, so Quinn is just the sacrificial coach.
He could be,
Greer's
or
just holding him up, just being like, just another year, buddy.
He could be, or not. But I think the big thing is, they brought Greer in right before the draft, right? So clearly it wasn't really Greer's draft, and then the free agency was like right there, and he had to get out from under stuff. And you basically have a situation where you have a GM and a coach who are going to be limited in what they can do. Again, this is the first, I look at this as the first true offseason for both of these guys. These guys need to be working as, in a partnership, right? Because Greer, Quinn ought to be consulting on the types of players that are necessary for what the system that he's looking to build into. And he and Greer have to be on the same page with that. So this is the first step toward that. It may not end up being anything. Quinn may not be a good coach or the right coach or whatever the situation is. I'm not saying he magically changes, but I am watching that a bit more closely because now I think we're getting to a point where there are really, if you look at last season, there are a couple of excuses you could throw out there. I think now we're past that point. So what is the Sharks team? What is their system? How do these players fit in? Even the ones that are temporary here. Again, you've hopefully had a say in who they are. Go ahead, Colin.
And I think this might be a good wrap question.
Sure.
Are there any players on the roster that either of you would see as untouchable in terms of trade? Like ignoring no move, no trade, like the players in on it. Just anybody that you're like, nah, hold on to that person.
I would not trade Eklund. And I would be slower to trade some of the prospects we have than anyone on the actual active roster. Like if Logan Couture suddenly decides that he wants out, move him, open up the cap space. If Hurdle, I like Hurdle a lot. I would love to see Hurdle be a Shark for forever, but realistically, the Sharks are in a position where if someone wants to walk who's a veteran, like an older veteran getting up there, they ought to figure that one out and restock the cupboard appropriately. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would say that for me, you wouldn't get the value you should get for Eklund. So in that sense, he should be untouchable in some sense. Nobody's going to throw the kitchen sink at him. So keep him. I don't think there's anybody else on the active roster I wouldn't trade in an instant at this point. Like the guy that I never would have traded, they traded last year. So
yeah,
here we go.
When you look at the roster, most of the roster is on the wrong side of 28, basically 27, 28. So like at this point, what these guys are. They're not going to suddenly, very few paths in the league that continue to ripen with age. So, and the players that they have now that are in that age range are not even really that great right now.
Yeah.
So if you have the opportunity to move, you have the opportunity to get out of especially a longer contract, fine.
Yeah.
Will that make the Sharks worse in the immediate term? Absolutely. Like if you lose Hurdle or assuming Couture can stay healthy, like even last season, like Couture was good last season. He was one of the better players. That'll hurt, but they're not the future of the team.
Yeah, and also you're betting that he doesn't fall off the cliff this year.
Sure.
At his age and
he's 34.
At his age and the way he's played the game, like the moment that his game goes over a cliff, it's rapidly approaching, and you cannot predict when it's going to happen. He's not. I mean, I'm going to say this, and then of course he'll play till he's 42, but I don't think he's Pavelski in that sense, right?
Again, Pavelski is a rarity.
Yeah, Pavelski is not just a rarity; he is almost unique.
Yeah.
In the way that he's stayed good. He first really got better at 29. I mean, he was always a good player, but like 29 was his suddenly I'm an elite player sort of year, and he has stayed elite ever since. And that is just like, you don't see that. It doesn't happen, particularly with a guy who has taken so many pucks to the face because he plays in front of the net.
Sheets of ice to the face.
Yeah.
Hey man, people, nutrition Science. People are living. People are living longer, so we're gonna start seeing players peaking at 42 at some point. You know it.
That's
You know it.
not how that works at all.
Hey guys, 3 stars of the off season and or preseason and camp so far. So we got to do three stars. Who would you give them to? Go ahead, Don.
I'll go. So, third star will be Thrun. Second star is going to be Alex's fandom for Thrun.
Yeah.
And first star is Diet, apparently.
Yeah, Diet is everything. All right, I'll go next, Ben, because I need some time here. My third star is going to be Greer, but I'm going to take away half a star because I think on the one hand, I like some of what he's brought in, and on the other hand, he fills it with other stuff. So he's going to get a partial star, but I'm just going to leave it as a partial star. I'm not going to give him a star there. For me, I think Thrun, yes, not just because I really like him, but because he's one of the players I look at and I'm really, 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 really excited about, and will be really pissed off if the Sharks blow it. And I think they're going to blow it, but I really hope they don't. I think he's great, and he's what the Sharks need. And then I'm gonna give it to the first star to the rising youth, I guess, just because again, guys like Eklund. It's clear that they've been working hard in the offseason, and I think that's great, and they need to. And I know that seems like it's an obvious thing, but these guys understand that they're fighting for spots and they're putting in the work, which I think is really good. Also, by the way, that half star for a Greer is partially because of the Karlsson trade, obviously.
Alex, have you ever awarded a child with half a cookie?
Yeah.
Good job, Swart. Here's half a cookie.
I do that every time. I got to teach him a lesson. No, you want the full cookie. That's not
you
how life works.
You have to tax the things you give your kids. They have to get ready for adulthood. So,
I give him a quarter, and then I give him a half, and then I take off a quarter, and I go, "This you have to put in an investment account for life. Retire with any cookies." Ben, your 3 stars of the offseason /
I was hoping you'd forget me.
No.
All right. So my third star is also for Mike Greer, and it's not just a reflection for training camp in the roster to be, but it's 2 other things. It's obviously, I think he deserves some recognition for not getting jobbed by other teams in the EK65 trade.
Yes.
And then it's provisional up and it can go higher, right? So it's a provisional third that could become a second star if the Sharks have the balls to run the first all lefty decor for the entire year. Let's go. Because the decor is going to be bad anyway. So why not? Put all the old guys on their offhand because we don't need to develop them. Fuck them anyway. Put all the young guys on their left side and let's go. Let's do it. So that's the third star. Could go to a second if we see that.
It's the first time we've had a conditional star before. That might become a thing. Watch
out. Conditional third becomes a second.
This segment's about to get real long with conditions.
My second star is for Makhmoudulian, and my first star is for Eklund because they've been the young guys who clearly have stood out the most during training camp, and they may not get rewarded for it, but in a just world with a sane NHL team, they would.
Yeah, well, so is life. Well, listen, guys, we've got more preseason to go. They've got 2 more games.
Oh, boy.
I know. They've got a game against the Vegas Golden Knights, and they've got a game against the LA Kings. And then they open their season. Fortunately, we don't have to watch that banner get raised, but they open their season on October 12th. So a week from Thursday against the Vegas Golden Knights, and we are off to the races from there, folks. They will have 2 games that week. They will have the Golden Knights as their opener, and then they will have the Colorado Avalanche. It should be interesting-ish to see who makes the roster, but not really, because I think we just had a whole podcast about what it's really going to look like. But hey, as a reminder, we're back podcasting, folks, so you can subscribe to this podcast on the Apple Podcast app. Hey, Android people, Spotify, or work it out. We're never going to give you a hint. You just got to be smart about it. You can check us out on the web at circlingthecup.com. You can check us out on, I don't want to call it X, but you can check out Ben on X, Twitter, at circling. right? Twitter.
At Circling the Cup.
Yeah, it's Circling the Cup. Sorry, it's been a while.
You got it.
Facebook.com/Circling the Cup as well. And of course, we have our Discord where we will be watching games and live chatting and all the like, assuming that the Sharks are entertaining this year. Otherwise, enjoy another Sharks season, guys. Appreciate hearing your voices again. It's been good. I'm glad we have something to look forward to here, even if it's just a little glimmer. But say bye-bye.
Sigh. Oh, you said bye.
Yeah.
Did I just say
Also,
sigh?
you don't say sigh unless you're in like a New York Times comic strip.
Sigh.
Sigh. That's true.
Oh,
when you
shit,
translate
Colin
it, you
said
have to
it.
say it.
Bye-bye.
He said the words.
Sigh.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, that was fun. I got to get going through a carnival thing, but talk soon.
Okay. Later, I'll go walk my dogs. Have fun.
Yep.
Have fun.